What up, people? This is episode number 12 of Sunday Night Vibe, and it's only appropriate that I run solo because the ladies are taking care of kids and all that good stuff. So it's just some intimate time with me and you guys out there. So yeah, let's talk about it. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about careers. Let's talk about best job, worst job, dream job. Because I don't think that this is a topic that's touched on enough where, a lot of people are where they're at and they've been there for a long time. They don't know how to get to the place where they want to be. And they don't know who to ask or, because you go to high school, right? And that's supposed to prepare you for life, I guess. It kind of prepares you for college, and that's about it. And then maybe college is supposed to prepare you for life. And it kind of does, but not really, right? And you have career centers, and I don't know if around the country in every college it's the same. I'm sure there's, of course, some that are better than others, but for the most, for my personal experiences, what I'm trying to say is that my career center at college didn't lend me a hand in getting anywhere post college. They supposedly have connections with alumni, which sounds great, and maybe they connect you with someone in the field that you're looking for. Maybe that's the case for you, but that wasn't the case for me. And I went to my career counselor and they stuck me in front of a computer that had a job database. Maybe before like sites like Indeed were around, but like Monster and other sites were around for sure. So I could have done that at home. That's what I'm saying. So they weren't much help. So sometimes, talking to some people, in this case being me, sometimes maybe I can help you out because I've learned some things from some other really smart people. And I'm just responding real quick here. To someone who also needs my help. So that's the theme of the day. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about best jobs, worst job, dream jobs. Those are the three things, right? That's what else is there? Worst job. Let's start there because that's always the best. The worst job I ever had. I've had a lot of jobs, I would say, and a lot of different jobs. Some better than others. Let's see here. Man, I'm getting a lot. Silence is deadly. All right, sorry guys. Again, people ask my house worst job. So let's see. The worst job I ever had was a cool job, but the requirements on the job I was not there for. I was not about it, right? So it was actually a part of my first job ever. I started in, I think, eighth grade. So that would put me around fourth or fifth grade. Okay. One last time. Pause. All right. So fourth or fifth grade, I started my first job ever, and I was doing so at a pool as a swim instructor assistant / lifeguard, right? So this is a city pool. Mind you, I'm in eighth grade and I'm teaching Probably, well, the age groups range, lowest being about 3, right? So from 3 years old, teach them just, learning how to blow bubbles and, laying on their stomach and feeling comfortable and laying on their back and feeling comfortable, all the way up to teaching different strokes. And I had myself had been in this program since I was maybe 4, all the way up to 8th grade. And I basically graduated the program and they offered me a job. So that's how I got in. So again, all about who you know, right? Um, so it was cool because I enjoyed. I was not the lead instructor. I was a rookie, a newbie. So I was paired with someone who was either like a senior in high school or they were in, first, second year in college, and we would teach the kids, and that was great. That was the good part. So I did that for a summer, and then I came back, and they offered me a lifeguard position. That would put me about the youngest lifeguard there. And I also, there was another guy who also graduated the program, and he was also, at that time, made a lifeguard. So what I didn't like about it, loved the kids in the swimming classes, but as a lifeguard, it was the worst because you'd get up there and and you had to be able to handle yourself. Because I mean that because the kids, they weren't the nicest kids. The kids were being kids, and they would ask you questions, and they would test you. So like, example, you get up there, my first day, hey, you new? Of course, being a little bit wise, like, nah, man, I'm here all the time. I haven't seen you before. You new? I'm like, playing it off, playing it cool. Nah, man, I'm good. I've been here for a minute. You just ain't see me. That don't mean I haven't been here. You here every day? I haven't seen you. Are you new to the pool? Right. So this is the dialogue I'm having with a kid much younger than myself. I'm like 15, 16, something like that. The kid's probably like 12, 13. And this is the dialogue all the lifeguards have. And you get to learn to um, roll with the punches, and because they're trying to test you. So what made it the worst job is because the kids there, they would fake drown. Horrible, right? As a lifeguard, you have one job: keep everybody alive at the pool, right? Um, it seems like a simple thing, right? Pretty easy to do, but that job becomes so much more difficult when you have to decipher whether you have to jump off of your chair to pull somebody out the pool, only for them to say, "Just kidding you," go ahead and throw them to the side and tell them, "Okay, you got 15 minutes out of the pool, or you're gone for the day." Because if I'm focusing on you, fake drowning, I can't focus on someone who may be in actual harm. So, luckily, I never had to save anybody who was actually drowning. That is very common if you're a lifeguard long enough, maybe not even that long. You'll definitely have to come across that and pull the Heimlich or some other safety technique. So that was a crazy job that I had back in the day. That was my first job. I've had that was a normal job, but just not so normal circumstances, right? Also, what else did I have? Also, another job that I had, which was a good job because again, one of my first jobs. I got this right after lifeguard because again, so you knew a family friend, they owned a psychiatrist practice, and so I would be basically an office assistant. Just making copies and mostly in the file room with the patient files. Lots of paper cuts, interacting with patients on a very, very limited basis. As I, throughout the years, I did that from something like 8th grade all the way through college and through sporadically through college. So um, I was all about not getting a job at a restaurant, not getting at a fast food restaurant, and not getting a job at a grocery store because that's what everybody did, and I just wasn't about that. So I wanted something a little bit different, and so that's how I got those two crazy weird jobs. Um, but we all had that, and I bet you guys have crazier stories than that. Um, I'm trying to think of because with the psychiatrist's office, there's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on, but a lot of confidential stuff as well. So unfortunately, some of those stories you just you can't tell. But I've also worked at a movie theater. I've worked at uh, Toys R Us, RIP, rest in peace, Toys R Us, Babies R Us. I did that. That was an interesting experience. This is right around Black Friday. That was a sight to be seen. I did not get ambushed, thank God. I was behind the register for Black Fridays, and so I did not get trampled. But oddly enough, the people that you see the most at Toys R Us, where a kid can be a kid, that slogan's for real because it's mostly adults, and no, they are not buying toys for their for their children. They are buying toys for themselves. A lot of collectors find themselves at Toys R Us. If you did not know that, so that was a crazy. I'm trying to think if I have a weird Toys R Us story. I don't not much with the customers, but ended up with actual employee who ended up they found out that he was uh, taking shirts and clothing and things. Yes, Toys R Us sells shirts and different objects, and taking them and then later returning them to get the money for free. Yeah, dicey situation. That's retail for you. You got to be. Oh, that brings me to Adidas. See, I'm telling you, I've been all these jobs that I've mentioned so far that I've done. None of them have been the job I've inspired to do, and another one, and not my dream job. So we're building to this. These are all these weird, random jobs that it. Oh man, I got a story about a couple stories about some worse jobs, but um, from Toys R Us, I went not directly, but at a later point, I went to work at Adidas as a team leader. That's basically like an assistant manager. Um, you have duties to make sure collect the money and open and close the store. I ended up with scheduling and stuff like that. What made that job, I set a goal. I set a time limit, right? So this will lead us to your dream jobs. We'll come back around in a crazy unordinate fashion to another worst job experience, because I had one at a call center and it's crazy. But let me tell you about Adidas. All right, so I went to Adidas store location. It was as part of Tanger Outlet, right? And it was a conscious decision. I actually left more money on the table doing the weird, crazy job that I'll talk about in a moment to go to Adidas to attempt to be a store manager. All right, because store managers make my store manager, he would say he made around 70,000. All right, if you look it up, you can find these things out quite easily. I think they're around 50,000. All right, so that was more than what I was making prior to that. So my goal was to, within a year, become a store manager. Um, I had previous customer service experience, and a lot of people that you are competing with at at box stores, sometimes they don't have college degrees. They come up through the system. So that can help them because they have all the experience. A lot of times they've been there forever. But in my case, I think a college degree at a box store kind of gave me a leg up. Plus, I had previous customer service. I was a senior customer service representative prior to coming to Adidas. So those were the tools that I came in there, and I set a goal. Give me a year. Let me be to be a store manager, and then from a store manager, then you can be a regional manager, and you can be over multiple. So when you think of someone working in retail, you really think that it's like a dead end job, and that people, maybe not as intelligent, or not as intelligent, but lazy is what it is. How are you out of high school or out of college at a retail shop, right? That's a lot of the impression that someone at a retail store may get. But there's money to be made if you got that hustle, right? So that was my goal I set, and I let the manager know when they were hiring me that was my intentions. I didn't say specifically the year deadline that I was giving myself, but I did mention that I was there to be a store manager, and they knew my pay was higher at my previous job, so they knew that they couldn't pay me, but they bumped up my hourly rate more so than maybe some of the other team leads might have been getting, just because I guess they saw the drive and all that stuff. And I had to take their little online test, and I scored well on the online tests, so high that, and those things are what I would say. If you have to take those online tests, you have to think of what the answers they want you to stay. So the example of that is like, Timmy is an upset customer. He comes in and wants a refund, but he has no receipt. What do you do? Stuff like that. And it could be, the answers are, to me, obvious, but they may not be for all, experience levels, and, just your, some things may not be common sense, but for me, they felt like common sense just because I've had the experience and stuff like that. But it's basically stuff like turn them away, or go out of your way to help them. Basic stuff like that. So those are the kind of questions they got. I did well on that, well enough to where they were like, okay, this guy is making. Because when you do a hiring process, things that they're looking at, are they qualified for the job is one, but they can't be overqualified, because that means they're going to get bored and they're going to leave. So I was probably on that borderline, but they took a chance, and so I became a team lead at Adidas with a goal to be out of there if I did not get a manager position within a year. So, I was hustling, and I was doing everything, take any shift, whatever, trying to get the sales up. While I was on the floor, I was just trying to give it my best to get that, meet my year goal. And right around that year, my manager got a position in probably Myrtle Beach, which is about 2 hours from Charleston, where I was working, to go take over another store. And this was at the time where Adidas and Reebok were combining stores, or that was the plan. I don't think they ended up doing it. Ended up selling off another branch of, another division that they had, and they ended up keeping them separate, I believe. I don't know if they actually, they may have created a couple stores or some test stores, stuff like that. But so they were looking like a boom period. So I was feeling excited. If my manager was going, his spot would be open, right? No brainer. But instead of promoting me, they promoted the guy at Reebok, who was already the manager at Reebok, to take over both stores. So I didn't get that opportunity. So that was pretty disappointing, especially when I saw his work ethic and compared to mine. He had the experience. He'd run other big box stores, so he was way more experienced. But in my opinion, he was coasting, right? So you you go with who you know, I guess, in this case. So he got that job, and I was like, all right, there's Adidas all over the country. I was willing to go anywhere at that point. Um, there was openings, and I had heard that people were there for years and years and years, and some people who were qualified, and they got passed up, so I had that on my mind, but I had the goal. And so my year was there. So I basically let them know, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I have to do that or it's bust. So I eventually let them know that. And they were like, okay, we'll see. So I wasn't confident with their okay, we'll see. So I had to shift and go a different direction. So this will take us back. We're looping back now. So before I became a team lead at Adidas, before I did that, I was in marketing and advertising. That was the goal. All right. So we're talking about worst jobs, best jobs, dream jobs is what we're talking about tonight. How do we get where we want to be? So when I was in college, as I spoke about earlier, there's no way to give you that career path. You have to figure it out on your own. Unfortunately, that's a weird thing about college. Even if you have an academic advisor, it's still not clear. So had no idea. Nobody told me to do an internship, and I didn't know about internships, how valuable they were, or how to get one. I was clueless, and although I was motivated, I didn't know which direction to go. So I continued with the job I was doing in college. Was a youth sports athletic aide. They offered me a full-time job, and then from there I was on. But I wanted to do this marketing thing, so I was throwing out resumes, offering to be intern, whatever it took, but nobody was hiring. Nobody was hiring me, that is. And so it took me a year and a half, 2 years to get a call back. And I got a call back for an account executive position at the largest ad agency in Charleston, which is Royal Murray. And I was excited, but I didn't know what I was doing. So I went in, I spoke to Wes, and Wes is the freaking man. So Wes was, I think, he was over the account executives. I don't even know what his official title was back then. That's crazy to think about. But he brought me in, and after talking, he's like, yeah, you seem like a cool cat. Let me take you around, because I didn't know what an account executive was, and I ended up disclosing that in the interview, which some people would be like, "Wow, what are you doing?" But that was the rapport. Wes was so easy to talk to, and I was just honest. I was like, "Listen, I'm trying to do this. I've been trying to do this for a while, and I don't know exactly what it is you do, but I just know I want to be here." And that was good for him. So he took me around, and I walked through the ad agency, and I talked to everybody, and they told me what they did. So if you don't know what an ad agency truly is, it's a company that will that you hire, that will do everything from print. They will make you brochures or business cards. They will make you signs. They can do commercials on TV. That's the glamorous stuff. But websites and handle and promoting your product or service, right? And within the agency, there's so many goals. There's account executives, which I applied for, which I later would find out those are the people who manage the clients. So they would meet, see what your needs are, and they would take that back to the team, and they would find a plan to execute those ideas or those goals. And then I met with art directors who do the designs, the pictures, what you see. And I met with the copywriters who do the writing. They don't copyright like books. They are writers. So they write, headlines, things of that nature. And, I like to write. So I decided that I wanted to be a copywriter. So I gave that to information to Wes, and Wes was like, okay, we'll see. We'll call you back. They didn't have a spot there at the ad agency for a copywriter. They had a spot for an account executive. That's what I applied for. I did not apply for a writer. There was no position. But they were like, they called me back in a week and said, okay, we like you. Come on, 3-month internship. It was a paid internship. I was making like $8 plus they paid for my parking, validated my parking. And I would go there once a week on Fridays. Fridays, I was working for the youth sports. So I would then have Fridays off because games would be on Saturday. So I'd go in and do my internship. After that, they gave me a full-time position after 3 months, and I was in. So all that to say, you're looking for your career job or your dream job. It may not be the avenue directly. You may have to go left and then come right and come back, right? So that's a takeaway that I wish I would have known right away instead of those 2 years I was struggling. Maybe I would have found a different path to end, even though the one I eventually won was not on the direct path. So my background is in advertising. Once I got into the business and found out about it and learned about it, my goal was to be a creative director. So that was the dream job, creative director. And a creative director is just the person who runs the ad department. They may not be in charge of the entire agency unless, they could be a partner. But in a lot of cases, they are just the top level of the ad agency. So all the account directors and the writers report to that creative director. And you might have an associate creative director that's under him. So the creative director is like your president, and then you're of the ad agency, and then their associate creative director is like your vice president. But the company is typically a lot bigger. Again, those account executives, and they have a boss, and then there's a vice president of the entire company, and usually a president over the vice president. So that's a chain of command. So that was my goal, right? But as I learn, goals change. You have to keep changing your goals, right? So I did that at Around Murray for a little bit, but they didn't have a job for me. They had to create one, and they did, and I'm grateful for that. That was amazing. But they had 2 writers ahead of me. They had their copywriter and their associate creative director was also a writer. So 2 writers ahead of me. So I was scraping, the small crabs at the bottom of the barrel. And eventually I went over to Myrtle Beach and I did some writing for them. And so I'm building my portfolio. I have the aquarium with Around Murray, where they had an interactive gaming and microsite for kids that they ended up using for like 4, 5, 6 years. It got nominated for, it got gold for a regional Addy. Addies are like the Oscars for advertisement. So there's local, regional, and then national. So it got gold regionally, and then it put it in the running for nationals, but it didn't place national. So that was like the first project I ever did, and it got a gold for regional. So that's, great luck and amazing timing, all that good stuff. I'm on my path to be a creative director, right? And I go to Myrtle Beach and I do a lot of hotel stuff. Got to work on a McDonald's campaign, which is fun and amazing. And then they were mostly hotels. So When the housing market went down, people didn't have money for travel, so we were mostly hotels. So um, they laid off our whole. They had a whole print shop where they were printing all of our material, which usually that is outsourced to someone else, but they had it. They ended up laying off all those people, and then started laying up people in the front. Disaster. So I got laid off there, and that's where the career path again goes sideways, right? Um, so I was just looking for a job. I've been doing. I mentioned I was at Toys R Us and Babies R Us, and I was doing that part time while I was doing other things, just for extra money. Um, Money was okay as a copywriter, but I just want more money. So spent a couple days, a couple nights working at Toys R Us Babies R Us. So when I get laid off, I'm still working at Babies R Us. That becomes they turn that hours into full-time hours. As I transferred back to Charleston. And this is where it brings me back to the worst job I ever had. Worst job anyone can ever have. I was a customer service rep for Verizon. And it's not bad because it was Verizon. It's bad because it's customer service and answering calls for all of you horrible people who call and complain about your bill. I mean, and that this gave me a lot of experience, but it was tough. It was really tough because the hours were weird. Sometimes it would be like 6 to 2 or something like that. Whatever. Sometimes it would be you'd be on a shift from like 4 in the afternoon to like 11 at night. Whatever the 8 hours are. I don't remember off the top, and I ain't trying to do any math here. But you get the point. So let's talk about some horrible stories from being a customer service rep. So you would call in, and I would help you with either any and everything, right? So your bill you didn't understand, your phone you didn't understand, whatever your problem is, you called customer service. I was probably complaining about you guys. But it's fun now. It's fun now. It was not fun then. But the money was good. The benefits were great. Listen, I don't remember how much to the day I had, but the time off had to equal about 3 weeks. It was something ridiculous because they know you needed plenty of it to deal with these customers, right? So you had sick time, time off, whatever, vacation time, all kinds of time that you could use, and weeks upon weeks, because you had to deal with these crazy people. So that was a perk. The other perk was, I think it was like half off the phone bill, something like that. Awesome. So let's talk about crazy calls I would get. You people are weird. You people are real weird. I had on multiple occasions different people would call in complaining, not like questioning, like, "Hey, this looks a little funny. Can you talk?" No, not nice. Angry that their bill was 1 cent higher. I'm not exaggerating. 1 penny higher. Can you tell me why my bill is a penny higher? I've had this service for 10 years. It's a penny higher. 15 cents higher. Oh my gosh, 15 cents higher. What are you guys doing? You robbed me. I need my money back. That's hilarious to me. I could not tell you what my cell phone bill is right now. And not that I don't budget or anything, but I know approximately what it is. I know what it should be. If it was crazy, I would know the difference, right? But 15 cents? Nah, I can't tell you to 15 cents. So people were really weird about it. People would call in and say, why do I have long distance calling or charges? Why do I have charges for long distance? I didn't even leave the country. Okay, this is your cell phone number, right? Yes, it is. Um, okay, let me take a second here. I look on the bill and I see, okay, 15 minutes to Canada, 25 minutes to Mexico. Oh man, it shows that you called Canada uh, 4 times on May 17th at 5 p.m. And then 3 times in Mexico at 4:27 a.m. Did you make those calls? Well, yeah, but I mean, that's America, right? God dang, your plan don't cover all of America. It is a nationwide plan. So it's only the nation of the United States, not Canada, not Mexico. Yes, they touch the United States, but that no, they are not a colonial plans. Or it's also hilarious when they roam or they when their kids buy the games. You know, back then, this is when I was working at a time where cell phones just or cell phone companies just came out with smartphones. You know, iPhone was relatively new, Androids were relatively new, and the app markets were relatively new. So people would call in because their kids, you know, I'm trying to think. I don't even know what the game was. I think it was pre Candy Crush. It may have been, I think Candy Crush was later, or maybe the tail end of my time at Verizon. But you know, the kids buy the apps and they download all these extra stuff and they spend. I'm like, lady, listen, they got what they paid for. You gotta control your kids. So that was hilarious. You know, having to deal with that, those irate people. Also, here's the kicker though. Here's what makes it one of the worst jobs ever, because you get people who would call in knowing that Verizon can't hang up on you, right? So they would call in, and this guy would call in until he got a female rep, which I think there was definitely more females than males there. So he didn't have to call and try back too often. But he would call in, and right away he'd ask him, hey, you know, you could tell a lot about a woman by the shoes that they wear. And so you can't hang up. So right around you hear that, you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, you cover your mic, you mute your mic, and you whisper to the person next to you, because this dude would call in so frequently that everybody in the call center would know who this guy is, and they know his story and what he was all about. Now, mind you, we're just one of many call centers, right? So you could hit us, there's a call center in Columbia, which is 2 hours away. There was one in North Carolina. So they're all over the country, right? But our call center, we don't communicate with other call centers, but dudes would call so frequently that he would hit our call center so frequently that everybody in the call center knew who this guy was. So you had to entertain him because he was relentless. Oh, is there anything else I can help you with? Yes, you can, but no, really, you can tell a lot about a person by the type of shoes that they wear. What type of shoes are you in? And the girl would be like, I'm in heels, sir. I knew it by the sound of your voice. You were a girl who loves her heels. You are so classy and sophisticated. I could tell already. So then he would go on and talk about feet and other things that you just ain't want to hear about. And so that was a hilarious experience. You also had the one that called up. She immediately after I helped her with her bill, and she's like, "Oh, you seem like a nice person. Can I pray for you?" Okay, sure, go ahead. So I had the person that would pray for me, and then you also had the one that would predict, and this is hilarious, it would predict the future. So he called in and would start, you have a brother, don't you? And did that whole thing. and laid out my whole future. And then the hilarious part, 4 or 5 months later, he called again and gave me a totally different prediction. So that was like the worst job I ever had because it was stressful. It was annoying. People were complaining about dumb stuff, but that gave me the experience. I became a senior customer service rep there. That gave me the experience that I needed to handle customers that were at Adidas, which I tried to get that job within a year. I hit my year deadline that I self-imposed, and so I started to search for other jobs anywhere and everywhere back in marketing. So I went back to marketing. I found a job in Florida, and there I was just a copywriter, but it is, again, the goal renewed to be a creative director, or at something at that level. So it turned into be a marketing manager is what they had directly over me. So that's what the goal was. That would take me over 60,000, and that was the goal that I was setting. That I thought I'd be comfortable with, right? So I again let my boss know. That's the thing. You let them know the goals, and if they're a good boss, they will help you find a way to that goal. So that's what I say. It's all about who you know, but you got to make your goals known, and you have to be good at what you do, right? So whatever you're doing, whether you're running shoes like I was at Adidas, I forgot to tell you. Oh yeah, so I put that deadline in, and then I was not able to meet it, and they were not able to help me meet it. So I basically put in my notice, and as soon as I put in my notice, they were like, "Oh, well, we can help you. You could become a team lead here, and that would put you in the path for assistant manager here." Nope, sorry. Oh, well, you could be an assistant manager here. I'm good, thanks, guys. I'm done. My year's up. Some people can't put that harsh deadline in, but for me, that's how I stayed motivated. So they ended up trying to accommodate me, but they tried way too late. So I took my talents like LeBron and went down to Florida. And again, I didn't have a deadline as in years, but I had a goal in mind. I let my boss know the goal. He was all about it. He was saying, "Okay, let me see if I can help you get there." And so I started from just being a copywriter. I started, talking to the clients as they came in and finding out what their problems are. Basically, in an account executive role, which I applied for and didn't have any clue what it was. But I took that role plus a copywriter's role and kind of merged them together and was managing and helping with clients. And on the side, I was doing podcasting as I'm doing now. I taught myself how to code basic HTML, and would be bugging the developers at my job. How do I do this? How do I do that? For my own personal knowledge. And through that, I was able to build my own websites. So I was like, oh man, and this is going to help because a creative director has to know how to do everything. They don't have to be great at everything, but they have to know how everything works. So websites, as you know now, we kind of knew at that time that they were going to be a big part of marketing and advertising, but now it's a massive part. So that was a huge tool for me to learn. And I learned that as part of my own hobby, podcasting and building websites around my podcasts. And so I was sitting at home on a Sunday afternoon. This is the other portion that you need to know if you want to get to that dream job. Get from your worst job to your best job to your dream job, right? So it's about setting goals, not being afraid to let people know your jobs. You gotta do that tastefully, not saying that, hey, I'm gonna run out of here. Like I couldn't have told them when they hired me, I'm gonna be out of here in a year from Adidas if y'all don't give me this job. You can't be that blunt about it. um, because then they're not going to hire you. They're not going to want to work with you. But it's okay to let them know you have your goals and what you want to do, right? So work hard, be good at what you do, establish relationships, which I am not the best at, right? So that's a weakness that I have to work on. Establishing relationships, and then having a presence online and things like LinkedIn, Indeed. Put your resume out there, have it up to date. And in this case, I had my resume on, I think it was on Indeed, and a recruiter contacted me to help with a filter company. It's called Paul. They're you don't you know most people don't know them, but they do filters for everything from basic like waters to aircrafts and tanks and medical stuff, right? So I had no idea this company even existed, but they were trying to build a new website, and they're a global company. So I've been working for small companies up until this point, but this is a $1 billion company, right? They're owned by even bigger company. So this was my chance to kind of get in with this massive company, this $1 billion company. I think they were like, I don't know, 3 billion, something like that, maybe more. Helping them build their website. So I went in to my interview, and the guy started talking to me as if I already had the job. So I ran with it. I was like, okay, I can do this. He asked me to do it. And I ended up helping with build, create that, but it was a contract position. So it had a 6 months or a year timeline on that contract. So just like how I put in my head that I had a time, the company had a timeline for me, but it was out there in the open. But it was a possible contract to hire, right? So, meaning if I did a great job, then they could potentially bring me on full time. So that was the goal. My boss, again, I let him know that I wanted to be on board. I told him, he asked me what I want to do. I want to help manage things. I basically told him I want to be his number two. All these things that seem maybe a little bit, if you say I'm wrong, could be arrogant, or could be just a total bad idea, is actually a good idea. People want to know that you're motivated, because there are, from what I've experienced, just getting to know my bosses and how they think, because I ask questions. And there are some people who come in and they're looking to excel. There's some people who come in, they're not trying to do any more than what it said on their job description. They'll do that and then they'll leave. And a lot of, because of how much they're getting paid and the numbers, some bosses are okay with those people, but they're not going to go out of their way to help those people either, right? So, and then there's some people who, that that they're basically renting, that you're here for a short time, you're going to do well, you're going to do an excellent job, and then you're going to take that and you're going to go somewhere else, right? So I was kind of in that job description, but I wanted it a full time if I can make it happen, because it was like 2 miles from my home. I was getting paid more money than I ever got paid before. And again, these guys came and sought me out, and so I was all for it. I was all about it, right? And I worked hard. I took on additional responsibilities, right? So this would be a good job. I was getting paid overtime, and I could work from home when I wanted to. So it was a good job, right? And I was starting to feel comfortable. And because it was a global company, my boss was flying all over to Europe and Asia, other parts of North America. And, he was taking other people with him, and I thought, okay, I could do that too. That'd be amazing. But all of a sudden, I heard that the flights that he was taking around the world, they put a freeze on that, and they put a hiring freeze, and then they put a total budget freeze on. And since my contract was just that, a contract, once I got the website, helped get the website up and out, gone. They did not extend me to full time. And I found out later, a year or so later, not just recently, that my boss was out 2 months after I was. So he had been the website got rave reviews. It increased their help increase their leads and their sales. So the job was well done. But the company as a whole was on budget freeze, and so we were gone. It goes back to who you know. So I had made some connections, and I ended up working on a freelance basis with a company out of Miami, and they were sending me jobs, and I was doing all right. But at this point, I could not take anything less than good. I've done the worst job, right? I've been there. I did not want to do that again. So I was taking these freelance jobs, and I ended up turning a couple away because I was getting bored of the freelance jobs, to be honest, which is weird when you don't have a full-time job to turn jobs down. But I don't know. I just knew what I wanted, right? And so I started getting offers. I'd been applying while I was doing this freelance. Listen, y'all want your dream job? I'll tell you I'm telling you how I got mine. I would put in no less than 8 to 10 applications a day for 5 to 6 months. 8 applications at least a day for 5 or 6 months. And I would waver. Some were really great jobs, and then some were just jobs. And those jobs that were just jobs, I ended up getting interviews for. Mind you, I was, again, freelancing, which is not steady. It's not predictable. You don't know how big the job is. You don't know how much the pay is. So I was getting offered. I ended up going to a couple different job interviews, and some I was overqualified for, but I've done that before to get my foot in the door to do something else. So that's why I took the interviews, thinking that I may do that. Ended up turning down an offer for about what I was making before I took that weird Paul job for filters. Turned that down because I wanted more. That's weird. That's really weird to do, especially when you're just doing freelance for 4 or 5 months. Don't recommend it, but that's what I did because I had a plan, right? Or a goal. I had a goal. Plans were a little shaky, but the goal was there. And then next, I got a big offer. I got a really great offer. Again, I had my resume out there, and trying to think of the order. Had my resume out there, and I was just hoping something would come out. And I had it on LinkedIn, and I had it on Indeed, I had it in Career Builder, I had it everywhere that you can look for a job. You can post your resume as well. So that leads to recruiters, and you get a lot of wacky calls with recruiters, and you get a lot of calls for the same jobs because everybody's going to the same sources, right? But I got a job for building a website. I didn't know who it was for, but I could see the location, which was in New York. Mind you, I'm in Florida, and the money. Money was good for where I was at in Florida. It was really, really good. But when you go to live in New York City, you need you need six figures or more to equate to what I was making. So I was like, okay, who is this? And eventually, through a couple interviews, I found out it was for Mercedes, building a website for Mercedes. Right? That would be classified as a dream job. I'm not a car guy, but um, I do like the brand. Just not just because it's expensive cars, but doing once I found out it was Mercedes, I was doing the research for Mercedes, and I just saw Mercedes is very innovative with safety. A lot of safety features that are standard today started with Mercedes. Probably a lot of people don't know that. Um, so they're one of the best brands out there for a reason, and that's a goal that I set. Kind of, I wanted to work for great brands that do great work, right? So that was upon being a creative director, that was the thing. Um, so yeah, I decided to take that on. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. But then I was like, I don't want to go to New York. It's cold. I hate snow. I mean, I like to visit in snow, but I don't want to shovel snow. I don't want to walk through snow. Um, so I was like, I don't want to do this. So turned down Mercedes. Again, freelancing, not a study. The Mercedes was paying way more than I was making. And they said, "Oh, you don't want to go to New York? What about Atlanta? You can go to Atlanta. Huh? Atlanta has the snow's not not on that level, right?" I was like, "Ooh, okay, I can go there." Um, but as soon as so I'm doing that, I'm contemplating, and while I'm doing that, my brother-in-law connects me with a gentleman by the name of Keon. Keon ran his own public relations company. He worked for, I believe, MTV. So really talented dude. And I think this is right before I got Mercedes, the offer for Mercedes. I think my timeline is correct. And he was like, send me your resume. I know some people. Maybe I can hit you up with a good job or connect you with someone or whatever. And he looked at my resume and basically said it was garbage, and it was, because you work hard on doing things for others, but you don't really. Some people, my case, didn't really work so hard for myself, so I didn't pay too much attention to my resume. So Keon was awesome enough to help me with that. And he tightened it up, and he didn't write it for me, but he circled things that were funky that he didn't understand, or prodded me to give more examples. I went from really generic, my resume being really generic, to providing details, like helped I had to go back and get stats, and like help increase um, leads by 15%. Just solid traffic increase by 250,000 um, clicks every 3 months, or whatever it was. Getting details, giving numbers. People like to see that. So he really helped me tighten my resume up. And I believe that's what helped me get Publix. So I got a call from Publix, which is they're the third largest grocery store in America, top 100 company, I believe. It might be 500, but I think it's top 100. Routinely best places to work for, all that great stuff. So I had an offer for Publix, which was an hour and a half from my house, and an offer from Mercedes, which was in a totally different state. And mind you, I just bought a house right before this. So Mercedes, which is globally a way bigger brand, Publix, which is an awesome brand, um, turned down Mercedes again, went to Publix. There as a content manager for the first time in a while. I would just be a content manager, which is building websites, right? So it was an amazing opportunity. If you stay there long enough, you'd after like a year or after a year, you would get stock in the company because it's a company owned, employee owned company. So everybody who works there longer than a year has stock in the company. Um, Back in the day when they first got started, people would start as baggers, and eventually, if they worked hard enough, they could become managers, and they would be millionaires from their stocks alone. That's because Publix, exploded, and just from a small around locally in Florida, and they're all the way up to Virginia today. So they're continuing to grow. But some of those managers legit became millionaires by being a manager. So remember when I said, don't judge those people who are working in a retail environment. You look at somebody sitting there bagging groceries while they are making $11 an hour, they eventually would be making $1 million. Um, so that was cool. I did that for a year, and politics, a lot of politics involved there, that I wasn't really down for, but it was a good job. It was a good job. Um, I was happy to work there, and I got a lot of experience there doing that, and that led me to the dream job, right? And the dream job um, is Disney. So I had applied to Disney. I'm looking at this. Let's see. Since 2014, I'm looking at this now. If you're listening to the podcast, you're not going to be able to see this, but on YouTube, if you go to Sunday Night Vibes podcast, Sunday Night, what was it, SNV podcast on YouTube, you'll be able to see the video. But I'm showing you applications. So if you look at it, my phone, it's hard to see because of the glare, but there are things that look like yellow sticky notes, but it's actually a for screenshot on the computer for all the times I applied to Disney since 2014. That's 10, you'll see 10 different times. I applied to different positions, from a youth sports coordinator, because remember, that's what I said I did when I was in college, and a little after college, to copywriters, to trying to think, public relations, like all different sorts of jobs at Disney. Because I'm here in Florida, that's definitely one of the biggest employers, and it's a magical place, all that great stuff, la 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 la, fun, right? So I applied 10 different times to Disney. So here's the dream job. 10 different times I was rejected. No interviews, no calls, just a thank you for applying 3 months later. We found somebody else. Good luck with your future endeavors. 10 different times since 2014. This is now 2008 or 2018, excuse me. So within the span of 4 years, I applied 10 different times. So when I'm working at Publix and I'm starting to look at other places, right? I'm like, this may not be for me. The environment started getting shady, right? I had also had 4 different bosses. within that year, 11 months, 4 different bosses. So one went to do something else for Publix that he was he was doing a bunch of different things. So he took one of those things and made it his main job. So he was off. Then I got another boss who was way above us. Something went funky with that one. She was gone. Then the public relations manager became my boss, and she ended up quitting the same week I quit. But so this case was another one. I had my resume online, and bam, out of nowhere, I got a call for Disney. Now, mind you, I had already applied 10 times. So I knew they were not going to pick me for whatever reason. I don't know why, but they weren't going to pick me. So I said, so they asked if they can put my name in for Disney. I said, sure, whatever. Go ahead, throw your name, throw my name in there, um, and see what happens. I did not think that I was going to get a job for Disney, and I didn't. A week went by, I didn't hear back from the recruiter. So I was like, the recruiter had told me she knew the person hiring for the job. She emailed them all the time, and I would later find out that the recruiters would actually go on site to Disney and talk to their people and bring breakfast and bring goodie bags and all this stuff. So, but all I knew that she was in with the manager there. Oh, your resume looks beautiful. Because remind you, Keon helped me out. My resume is looking, you know, 5 shades of awesome. And so I I forget about it, but not forget about it. So after a week, I didn't hear anything back. She told me she would let me know regardless. So I called her. So I went from not caring to caring. Like, I do whatever you want. But then when I didn't hear anything back, I was like, hey, what about that job? And she said, oh, about that job, yeah. It's either one of two things. Either that job never existed or they already filled it. I'm like, what do you mean it's one of two things? That's the same thing. I didn't get the job. I'm like, oh man, I thought you knew. How do you had this in with this person? You talked to them all the time. You were there. You were emailing, but all of a sudden you didn't know if the job was filled. You didn't know if the job even existed. Like, what are you talking about? It was an awesome job. It was with the Disney website, and then they mentioned something about ESPN because ESPN is owned by Disney. Knowing and then other things like I think maybe the fun runs, they do like 5Ks. So I was working on all this craziness that was going to be amazing under the Disney properties, but I didn't get it. So I said, whatever, same old same. I put in more applications. Remember, I was doing 10 a day prior to that. I wasn't doing quite 10 a day, 8 to 10 a day. Because again, I had a good job. I was just kind of getting sour on it. So put in an application, and another one in Atlanta called me. This one, they emailed me rather. This one was for, I thought I was applying for Buffalo Wild Wings to be a marketing manager or something like that for Buffalo Wild Wings. It ended up being a position for marketing for Arby's. All right, the restaurant Arby's, which is a popular food chain. So that would be ironic because remember I told you I did not, as high school, absolutely did not want to work at a grocery store, which turned out to be a cool gig working for Publix, and I did not want to work for fast food, and it looked like Arby's was the next route because they wanted to interview me, and I wasn't going to let that one slip through, right? So I was like, okay, there. And then at the same time, again, I'm putting in a bunch of resumes. Some theme park. I can't even remember the name of it. It wasn't Six Flags. Trying to think of any other one. SeaWorld. It was a smaller theme park um, in Georgia. I know there's a Six Flags in Georgia. It was not Six Flags. It was another smaller. It was a smaller theme park. I don't even know the name of it. And in fact, they they emailed me and I told them what I wanted to make, and it was much higher than what they were offering. So that's how small of a theme park it was. If theme parks can be small, but they ended up emailing me back, or they ended up calling me back rather, and saying, "Yeah, we still like to speak to you." So I was like, "Oh, they're gonna pony up the money, so sweet." But while I was contemplating that, because again, I'm in Florida, Arby's is in Georgia, I believe it was, and the theme park was also in Georgia. I live in Florida, not good, but gotta do what you gotta do. So as I'm trying to contemplate where I'm gonna go there, I get a email or a call back from the recruiter who knew everybody at Disney. She says, "Hey, sorry about last time, but a manager at Disney gave your resume to another manager at Disney, and they want to hire you." Or she didn't say they want to hire you; they want to talk to you. And I put your application in. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We've been here already. You said you knew everybody, and you said that I was going, I was a shoe in for this. But go ahead. So she puts it in, and like a day later, they want to talk to you on the phone. What? Talk to me on the phone, Disney? That's crazy. Because again, 10 times in 4 years, I had never got a phone call. So I was ecstatic, nervous, all that good stuff. Um, I didn't think I was going to get the job though, because Disney recruits worldwide. They get so many resumes in. Um, and I went through the interview process. It was with two sets of group interviews, two sets of group interviews after the phone interview. I'm sorry, I got the phone interview. They brought me in later that week to do group interviews. Nervous, didn't really think I was going to get it. Had to interview. And as I was leaving the interview, one of the guys said, just making it here should feel like an accomplishment. And he wasn't being arrogant at all. He was being sincere and matter of fact. Just making it here, only the best of the best get here. Just making it here should be an accomplishment. So you should feel proud of yourself. And I was like, awesome. I bombed. This must have been the worst interview ever. Because I mean, who wants to hear that? Like, I mean, knowing what I know now, it's true. The best talent interviews at Disney, but hearing that sounds like thanks for coming in, good luck. But I ended up getting the job. There's stiff competition. Apparently, it was between me and another person, and that person ended up getting another position at Disney. So they were apparently amazing as well. And yeah, so I'm now in a contract with Disney. So working through that, trying to be full time with Disney. I really enjoy working at Disney. It is everything that you would think working at Disney is. I'm a content, or excuse me, they call it a digital producer. So I'm working on the website for the cruise lines for Disney. So yeah, that's the dream job. I didn't know it was the dream job. It was the job I was aiming for since I've gotten to Florida, as evident by the 10 different times I applied. I don't recommend you applying necessarily 10 times to the same exact thing, because especially if it's not a massive company, even though Disney is a massive company, they all talk to one another. So if you get rejected from one, It's not to say to give up. Don't, keep doing it. Just don't do it every week. You want to put some time in between those applications. Go get some experience if you don't get called back. But that's the persistence I think it takes. Other people got in much easier than I. They knew somebody who worked there and got plucked in right away. That goes to building those relationships wherever you work is very important, because one person was working at their job, came to Disney, and then brought them over. But had they had a bad relationship with them, it would never happen. So you got to build that relations. You got to do, if they didn't do awesome at their job, if they weren't really good at what they did, they would not have gotten brought over to Disney. So who you know, do well, state your intentions of what you want to do. Um, and then you've got to seek to get your foot in the door however you may. Sometimes you have to take a less paying job to get a better job. I stepped down multiple times, and it sucked. It really did. Financially, obviously, it sucked, but everything that comes along with that, it stinks. But it all to get me back to where I'm at now. So that this has been an amazingly long podcast to do by yourself. It's probably I've done podcasts by myself multiple occasions. This is probably one of the longest. Thank you guys for tuning in and hanging with me. Definitely subscribe to Sunday Night Vibe podcast on YouTube. We really need the subscriptions there, and iTunes is big. Even if you only listen on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe on iTunes and Google Play. If you're only listening on Google Play and iTunes, please come over to YouTube and subscribe. It all helps us be able to grow and provide you guys with better content, have better headphones and cameras and all that good stuff. It all matters. Our podcasts are very different. Each one, we're like a Seinfeld episode. We try and talk about things that are relevant, things that are evergreen that you can come back and listen to at any point. So we have everything from crazy whodunit stories to the best R&B group of all time, and this podcast that you're listening to right now. But we're pretty much everywhere. SNV podcast at SNV podcast or Sunday Night Vibe podcast. Make sure you share this with a friend. We've had a bit of a hiatus. We added a new baby to the family, so that's why we've been absent for a couple weeks. But we're back now, and we're hoping to bring you back something good and something interesting, something that you can chew on every Sunday night, usually around 8:30. If you have podcasting ideas, as in topics you want to hear us talk about, go ahead and send them in. Message us on Instagram. It's probably the easiest way, or Facebook. Next week, I hope we'll be joining by my co-hosts, Claire and Nadia. If not, we'll see if we can get some guests hosts in. But thank you once again for tuning in. Go out and get yourself your dream job. We'll see you next week. Peace.